So now we're going to take a tour of the line, and Carl, I'll let you take over here and sort of tell us a little bit about what I'm taking a shot of and how the railroad flows in terms of operation.
Okay. My short line railroad is called the Bristol and Elk Lake.
Okay.
It's a fictional railroad, and I just made the name up many years ago. Well, we have a cottage.
Yes.
It's up close to Bristol, Quebec, and so I chose that name, and then was looking at maps and found somewhere in northern Ontario a town called Elk Lake. So I thought, oh, that kind of sounds neat, and then created some of the artwork and so on for lettering that I wanted on cars and locomotives and so on.
So this is a point-to-point railroad.
Yes, it is.
So
it starts here in the town of Bristol.
Okay. And Bristol has a large yard, I see.
Yes.
And I guess it gives you an opportunity to classify cars and set up trains that'll be heading up the branch or out onto the main line.
Right, and it's the connection point to the mainline trains that that come into town and swap cars.
All along the wall too, I see that there's great flats with industries, so it gives you some facing and trailing switches as well, so you can do some switch action right here.
Right, yeah.
Very nice. And then this wonderful station. So that's something that you'd manufactured yourself or put together?
Yeah, no, this is one that I scratch built myself.
Yeah.
For a number of years I had been wondering what sort of station to put in. Most of the kits, the Craftsman kits that I looked at, were wooden stations.
Yes.
And with all of the brick structures and so on in the city, I felt that was not appropriate. It needed to be a fairly large station. I wanted a second story so that the railroad offices could be put in there as well. And so in travels around and rail fanning and so on, I fell in love with the station at St. Johnsbury, Vermont, which is what this is a model of, more or less.
Yes.
In St. Johnsbury, the main entrance to the station is on the back side, and since I have a track running right behind it, I've modified where the entrance to the station is so that it comes in on one end. But it's a pretty close model, slightly condensed in size, but pretty close.
Then you have your locomotive facility over here.
Yeah.
And a lot of stalls.
Yes, a few of them are, or actually one of them I think is short, and that's why the door is closed.
Yes.
But that's where most of the locomotives are stored.
And you have your ash pit. And sanding facility.
Yes.
And see in the back there's lots of sand. And a coaling tower.
Yeah.
And the water tower.
Most of those are Campbell kits.
Yeah, they look terrific. I was just thinking that you could really put a hostler to work here, moving locomotives out to the trains and bringing them in for servicing.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And this building over here that you have set up here, that looks like there's some reefers or something.
Yeah, it's a brewery.
Oh, of course. Canadian Railroad's got to have its brewery.
Of course.
So in a major town here with the main line coming through and the branch going up, do you find that traffic will come along the main line into this town and is dropped off and goes to local industries and then right back out again? Or does that...
Some of it does.
Yeah.
Some of it will actually be just run in the line itself.
Okay.
From one or two industries.
Yeah.
At the moment, a few of the industries have names on them. A lot of them don't. I haven't really decided on exact names for things. Yes, we're now looking mainly at the big freight house.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That looks like one of the prototypes I've seen in Vermont. I think Vermont and Essex guys have a big freight house like that. But it's very effective, isn't it?
Yeah, and in fact,
it goes right down to the building on the end.
Yeah. The freight house itself was actually kit bashed from a model that came out a number of years ago, which was a model of the NMRA headquarters building. but I modified it a little bit to make it into a freight house.
And over here we have a wonderful coal facility.
Yeah.
That looks like a kit as well.
It's a woodland, or sorry, it's a fine scale miniature.
Oh yes.
Kit.
Our friend George Celios does
Right.
it again. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks really terrific. So this yard throat here, I can see a track that seems to head off towards the backdrop. Does that go to staging?
Well, the back one is the switching lead.
Okay.
Where the switcher is sitting. The one in front of that, though, is the main line.
The ballast is quite a bit different,
yes,
isn't it?
And it goes, and it's higher, of course, too.
Yeah.
Drainage better, and that goes back into staging, yes.
And that's all on spline, I take it,
Yes.
once it gets up here. So the line goes back behind the trees and kind of disappears into staging back
Right.
over there.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it look like it went into a tunnel particularly, so it just kind of disappears off in the trees.
Let's go look at staging. Like a lot of us, we try to find these funny little places in our house where we can stage our trains off layout. We're in a bit of a storage closet here by the look of it, and maybe you can tell me about how this staging is set up.
Okay, well, when I built the original layout, before I put the scenery in, there are 3 tracks back in here that you can just kind of see. There's a train on one of them.
Yeah.
That was the original staging.
Right.
And then a couple of years ago, we had to replace our furnace.
Yeah.
And right where we're standing now, there used to be a big oil tank.
Mm-hmm.
And we switched from oil to gas. So
Yeah.
we gained some storage space.
Right.
Which is what all of the shelving on the wall is that you took pictures of a couple of minutes ago. And so I managed to negotiate one shelf
Perfect.
of the storage space to hold some trains on.
So the way this is structured too, I can see that you can actually turn a train, I guess, into some degree.
Well, not really. It's not. There isn't. It looks like there might be a Y, but there isn't.
Oh, okay.
There are a couple of tracks that go each direction.
Oh, gotcha.
Here.
Okay.
So the idea is, if I do actually get interested in doing a full-size operation, then trains would go from here out, appear on the railroad, come back onto the other side, and just go straight in, head end in, and then between operating sessions, then I could rearrange trains,
sure,
and reorganize things. Yeah.
So here we are in this little spot under the stairs, and you can actually accommodate quite a bit of your rolling stock and have it come on and off the layout in this space.
That's right. It's all of the main line, or my main line trains are in here. At the moment, there are about 5 of them, I think, staged all in here. Yeah.
So in they come, and that's 5 trains for fun and action in your main yard.
That's it. Yeah.
That's great. It's better than having them stored in boxes under the layout.
It is.
Yeah, and bringing them off and on, you don't have to handle the cars as much.
Right. Yeah. Although there's always cars that you like to have, but you end up choking the yards up if you put everything on the layout.
You got that right. So one of the things I'm always interested in is, in a lot of layouts, is they have unique ways of throwing their turnouts in a rather complex yard, rather than reaching in and flipping a switch by hand. I see you have quite a unique system here.
Yeah, this is based on a system that's used in other layouts around the city, and I had seen it at a friend's layout. So built it up myself. The toggles themselves are pieces of oak. Happened to have a chunk of oak, and got it all cut up into shorter lengths. Then down buried inside here, there's a hole in the bottom of each one of these pieces, and a piece of threaded rod that goes through, and then brackets that hold everything in place.
Right.
And then it runs through auto and truck choke cables.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure whether they're still available or not, but at the time I was building them, you could go to Canadian Tire and
Get choke cables.
Get choke cables.
Yeah.
So they're one end is attached to here, which throws the switch, and then the other end goes and attaches to this standard connection to the under the track connection to a switch.
So to sort of recap things here, you have a piece of wood. On the bottom there's a stiff piece of rod that goes through and attaches to a rod that's in a choke cable, so it can bend and wind to where you need it to go. And then it's connected to a linkage to the turnout.
Correct. And then at the linkage there's also a micro switch to control electrics to the frog.
Right, so you have a DCC system.
Correct.
And what brand of DCC do you use?
I'm using Lens.
Okay. Yeah. And that is one of the ones I've seen quite a bit in Ottawa. And it's very effective. I quite like using it. Are there any particular unusual things you got to think about in terms of DCC when you're doing lens?
Not particularly with Lens, but I guess just with DCC. When I built the layout, it was built, of course, to run in DC.
Yeah.
I had 2 throttles, and controls were all set up so that you could choose between the 2 different throttles.
Right.
So when I bought the DCC system, I just disconnected the DC and connected Lens up to 1.
Yes.
And that worked perfectly until I then got into running circuit breakers in different parts of the layout.
So you were breaking it into districts.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it took some time before I finally figured out where all of the interconnections had been.
Yeah. To make the big divide.
To make the big divide, yes. Yeah. It took a while until I managed to finally figure all of that out. So there's a bit of rewiring underneath to get that to work. But the initial installation was easy, just a piece of cake. Just connected the DCC system up and it worked. We're now looking at the start of my short line,
yes.
The main line for my short line.
Yeah.
Starting off from Bristol Yard, just behind me.
Right.
And then going along through the River Valley. I do like bridges, so I have a number of different kinds of them.
That's a beautiful bridge.
Yeah. That's the Central Valley Bridge. And then a little further on is the Campbell Wooden Bridge. I haven't got around to upgrading that bridge yet.
What are you going to do to upgrade it?
Well, I'm not going to do anything. I had thought about starting to build like a little runaround, so that, and then they would be thinking about changing the bridge over, but I do like the wooden bridge.
So what you're thinking is sort of a scene where the old bridge is, they're preparing to remove the old bridge and put a new one in.
Yes.
Okay. And your water's very nice. It really is very reminiscent of what you find in Quebec with the browns and the blacks. How did you do that?
There's one piece of wood that everything's sitting on.
Yeah.
And I was fairly careful to try and get it level.
Yes.
Then a very thin coat of plaster over top of that, and painting. I did experiment, not on here, on other pieces of wood to figure out what looked best.
Yeah.
Especially after you'd added the plastic top coat on.
Right.
And then in this case, the top coat is a commercial plastic that's used when they're making these nice tabletops.
Yeah.
They have a fairly thick plastic coat on them.
Is that like Envirotex or something?
It's very similar. I'm sure it is. It didn't smell. It did take a little bit of time to work to set. That was the only issue.
Yeah, it's very clear and you can see right through. It's very nice. And more of your fantastic rock work.
Yeah.
And I really like the way you've built up the foreground scenery here too, because it really creates a sense of depth, and the trains coming and going in behind the scene like you would picture it in a normal.
Yeah, they sort of disappear
environment.
around the trees.
So then you come around the first curve here.
Yeah,
and
trestle, and we're going over a mountain stream.
Yeah, I see. It's very interesting the way you've created the waterfall down in the back there. It's kind of out of sight at the top, so you can't see the source.
Correct. Yeah.
And then it just curves down and comes under the bridge. And the thing I really like about it when I look at it is the amount of space that you used to generate this. It's not like a straight out from the wall 4-inch wide piece. Even though the waterway may only be a couple inches wide, the whole landscape cut there looks like it's about a foot wide.
Mm-hmm.
It looks terrific. So now we're coming across a road, and it looks like we have a mine back there.
Yes, that's.
What's the name of that mine?
I don't have a particular name on it.
Yeah.
It's a kit of the Red Mountain mine somewhere up in Colorado.
Okay. Do you know the manufacturer's name of that?
I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
It's an older kit. Not manufactured, I believe, anymore.
Ah, gee, it's wonderful. It's it takes a nice small footprint too. It
Mm-hmm.
looks like it's about 1.5 feet by about 10 inches deep.
Yeah.
And the rolling stock in the front, what do we got there?
Those are Tichy ore cars.
Right.
So that'll be the ore coming out of the mine.
Yeah. Now those are nice little kits. I've had a look at them. I've never actually seen them built. I was considering buying a few to have some fun. I guess they're quite a challenge to put together, especially under the undersides.
They're a bit of a challenge, yeah.
But well worth it.
Yeah.
They look terrific. And I just see you put car numbers on the side, which is pretty typical of these backwoods ore companies. They didn't get too fancy.
No.
And this here, man, that looks so familiar. I'm thinking back Model Railroader magazine when I see that. It's one of my favorite designs that I've seen.
Yeah, there is a kit for that one.
Yeah.
It came out of one of the magazines. I believe it was Model Railroader as Perkins Produce.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of the name of it.
Yeah, so I scratch built that based on the plans that they provided.
Yeah.
And as I said, somebody has in the meantime come out with a kit for it.
Well, Perkins is famous. I think I even have the plan set somewhere aside to build it someday. I just like the fact that it's on 2 levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique part about it. Wow. There you go. And now we're into a little town, it looks like, eh?
Right. This is for intermediate town on the railroad.
And what's its name?
Unnamed at the moment.
Unnamed. Okay, you can save it for one of your favorite people, eh?
People or some other town along the line that I think of.
Yeah. And it has some freight yard, passing siding, and a station.
Yeah.
Looks like very much like a Canadian prototype station.
It is, yes.
Wonderful. So the town continues on, and here's an unfinished part of the layout that you're working on.
That's right, yeah.
And it looks like it's going into a wall and a tunnel there.
Right. I need to figure out a little bit about how to hide all of that. But,
Yeah.
that will come as time goes on.
Probably a few painting tricks.
That may help it, and a tree or two, and possibly a building or surrounding it too, or something to make it disappear.
Rock face or something. Yeah, very nice.
And that's the entrance to the helix.
Ah. Haha.
That's all inside
I like
there.
this. Somebody must have wanted to poke fun at you here and got you the Bazinga guy.
At one of the train shows, they had a couple of these posters done up, and I asked him whether or not I could get one of them when he was finished with it. So
Mm-hmm.
he gave it to me.
Wow. That's terrific.
Since I'm a big fan of the show, I thought I had to put that up.
Yeah. I think that's amazing.